Formal language. Now, when we are talking about formal writing and we are talking about salutations to be very formal, it is very important to give our students an understanding of what is actually formal language. Nowadays, it has become very difficult to make a distinction between formal and informal writing. And also, as I said earlier, different institutions and different culture designate some words to be formal, some words to be informal, but some words are taken to be both formal and informal. So it becomes a pretty difficult job for the students to make a distinction between the two. But still, since the students need to identify the language features in a formal writing and the formal language to be used in formal writing, it is the job of the teacher to give them examples from the daily life how to make distinction between the formal language and the informal language. Usually, the example of the text messages given is quite applicable to this situation. Many of the students, even at the primary level, are now texting to each other. So the first distinction that they can make out is that the language usually that they use for text messaging is informal. Only in case where they are sending a text to somebody who is higher in position or age, they might not be using informal language. But these days, certain restrictions from family bonds have also been removed, and people talk to the parents in a very casual manner as well. So, but the teacher needs to clarify. She can ask for examples. For example, she can ask a student, okay, what would you write to your father if you want to tell your father to pick you up from the school at 12 p.m.? So the example could be, there is a possibility, the possible answer from the student could be, he is going to write, "Dear Dad, Assalamu alaikum, kindly pick me up from the school at 12 p.m. Thank you. Your son, blah, blah, blah." But in other case, there is a possibility that there is an example of the student who says he is going to just write, "Pick me up at 12 o'clock," because the number is already there in the phone of the dad. So he doesn't need to write, "Dear Dad." It is obvious that he is sending this message to his dad. So he doesn't really need any salutation or even does not need to thank him. So there is a difference between the two language forms which are very obvious if the teacher asks opinions from different students. And another thing is that the teacher should accept all answers, because only then she will be able to get the examples of all types of languages being used by the student. Because if she is going to say, no, this is not the proper way to write a message to your father, then that means she is not going to get the variety of opinion, because she is actually bringing in a hesitation. So maybe somebody is writing to his dad very informally, but since the teacher has sort of given a signal that it is not accepted, so the other examples in the class will not be given. It is a right attitude to accept all the answers so that the difference of different language forms being used is clear to the students. Another way to do that is that you ask your students to write a sentence which is given by the teacher in an informal way. For example, the sentence given, "Get me a glass of water," could be given by the teacher, and then the students be asked to make it as formal as possible. So there can be different degrees of formalities shown by different students in the class. Some students may write, "Please get me a glass of water from the fridge, and I would be very thankful to you for that act of kindness." So there is a lot of formality in this. Or then there can be another possible answer, "I wonder if you can get me a glass of water." That is another very formal way of asking for a glass of water, instead of saying, "Get me a glass of water." So the teacher can always brainstorm different types of responses from the students, because until and unless they have a comparison of an example sentence which is informal and they are transforming it to the formal type of language, they would not be able to identify what is formal language and what is informal language. So the two examples would enable them to make a distinction between the two and identify which is the formal language.